Number 10. The Nanavati Scandal. This is the story of Kawas Manikshaw Nanavati, a naval officer who shot and killed his wife's lover, Prem Ahuja, in 1959. His wife, Sylvia, confessed her affair to him, and he took his family to the movies, then got a gun and went to Ahuja's apartment. He asked him if he would marry Sylvia and take care of their children, and when he said no, he shot him 3 times. He surrendered to the authorities and was put on trial for murder. The case became a sensation, with the public and the media divided over his fate. The jury acquitted him, but the judge overturned the verdict and sentenced him to life imprisonment. The Supreme Court upheld his conviction. He spent 3 years in jail before he was pardoned and moved to Canada with his wife and children. Number 9. The Dismemberment of Shraddha Walkar. This is the story of Aftab Poonawalla and Shraddha Walkar, a young couple who met on a dating app and moved in together, but ended up in a bloody tragedy. They argued about marriage, and Poonawalla stabbed Walkar multiple times with a kitchen knife. He then cut her body into 35 pieces and packed them in plastic bags. He rented a car and drove around the city, dumping the bags in different forests. He left his fingerprints on one of the bags, and the police traced him back to his apartment. They arrested him and found bloodstains and evidence of the murder. He confessed to his crime and said he did it out of love. He said he could not bear the thought of losing her or seeing her with someone else. Number 8. The Betrayal of Kanpur Giot. This is the story of Piyush Shyamadasani, a husband who hired hitmen to kill his wife, Kanpur Giot, so he could be with his mistress, Makija. He paid 4 men to kidnap and kill his wife and make it look like a random crime. He called the police and reported that his wife had been abducted by some bikers. He acted like a worried and distraught husband and hoped that the police would find his wife's body and close the case. But his plan backfired. The police found his wife's car with her body inside. She had been stabbed 17 times, and there were signs of a struggle. The police suspected foul play, and they interrogated Piyush. He cracked under pressure and admitted his involvement. He said he did it because he wanted to be with his lover, and he thought his wife was an obstacle. The police arrested him and his accomplices, and they also arrested his mistress, who was aware of his plan. They were all charged with murder, conspiracy, and tampering with evidence. They were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Number 7. The case of Nikki Ensel. Nikki Ensel was a married woman who had an affair with Earl Howard, a co-worker. They decided to kill Nikki's husband, Chad Ensel, and collect his life insurance money. On January 2, 2020, Nikki called 911 to report a fire at her home, where Chad's body was found with 2 gunshot wounds. She claimed she was at a hotel, but the police discovered she was with Earl. They also found evidence that they had staged the fire to cover up the murder. Earl confessed that they were both involved. He got 25 years in prison. Nikki got life in prison. Number 6. Ex-spouse crashes Thanksgiving dinner. On November 24, 2022, a man armed with a gun entered his ex-wife's house, where she was hosting a Thanksgiving dinner with her new partner and relatives. He shot and killed his ex-wife and her new partner, and wounded 2 others. He escaped, but was later arrested. He had a history of domestic violence and was in a custody dispute with his ex-wife. He had also threatened to kill them before. He faces capital murder charges. Number 5. Lexington man arrested after killing wife. Stephen Henderson and Talina Henderson had a troubled marriage. They had frequent fights, and Talina had filed for divorce several times, but always changed her mind. She was afraid of Stephen. Stephen called the police and confessed that he had shot his wife. He said he did it because she was cheating on him and wanted to leave him. He said he loved her and couldn't live without her. The police found Talina's body with multiple gunshot wounds. She had sought an emergency protective order against Stephen days before her death, but it had not been granted yet. Stephen pleaded not guilty and is awaiting trial. He faces life in prison or the death penalty. Number 4. An author who wrote about a committed murder. Imagine writing a book or an essay about how to kill your husband and then actually doing it. That's what happened to Nancy Crampton Brophy, a romance author from Oregon. She was sentenced to life in prison for shooting her husband, Daniel Brophy, twice in the kitchen of their home in June 2018. The irony is that she had written an essay titled How to Murder Your Husband, which described the exact method and motive she used to kill him. She wanted to cash in on a $1.5 million insurance policy, as the couple was in financial trouble. She also had a secret lover who testified against her in court. The police never found the murder weapon, but they traced the gun purchase to her. Nancy Crampton Brophy was a self-published author of steamy romance and suspense novels, such as The Wrong Husband and The Wrong Lover. She had posted her books online before she pulled the trigger on her husband. Number 3. The murder of John T. Conlin. Sometimes the best way to get away with murder is to convince someone else to do it for you. That's what Amy Conlin did when she hired her young lover, James Depew, to kill her husband, John T. Conlin, in 1931. John was a wealthy businessman who was shot in the spine near his apartment in New York. He survived the attack, but was paralyzed and slipped into a coma. Amy pretended to be a grieving widow, but the police soon discovered that she was having an affair with Depew, a 22-year-old clerk. They found love letters between them, which revealed their plot to kill John and run away together. Depew confessed to shooting John during a staged robbery, but Amy denied any involvement. John woke up from his coma a few months later and identified Depew as his assailant. However, he died from his injuries 7 months after the shooting. Depew was sentenced to 30 years to life, but Amy walked free as there was not enough evidence to convict her. Number 2. Woman killed after exposing husband's affair. Social media can be a powerful tool to expose the truth, but it can also be a dangerous weapon. That's what a woman from Malaysia learned when she was killed by her husband for revealing his affair on Facebook. The woman, who was 28 years old, was taken to the hospital unconscious by her husband, a 38-year-old mechanic, on the eve of Raya, a Muslim festival. She died later that night. The doctors found her death suspicious, as she had bruises and head injuries. They alerted the police, who arrested the husband. He confessed that he had beaten his wife to death because he was angry that she had posted about his affair with another woman on social media. The police also found evidence of his infidelity on his phone. The case is still pending in court. Number 1. Singapore man beats wife to death. Love can make people do crazy things, but sometimes it can also make them do horrible things. That's what happened to Kui Bing Tao, a Singaporean man who beat his wife, Liang Xiaoying, to death in 2020. He was jealous that she was having an affair with a coworker, and he confronted her about it. He dragged her to the ground and punched and kicked her repeatedly. As she curled up in a fetal position, he hit her in the back of the head and neck, causing her to hit her head on the concrete. He threatened to divorce her once he returned to China, where they were both from. She stopped breathing, and he called for an ambulance. She was pronounced dead on arrival. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 7 years in prison and 9 strokes of the cane. That's all for today's episode of True Crime Stories. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Also, let us know in the comments what you think of these cases.